So, with Five Nights at Freddy's slowly making its way into the fog, many people start speculating on what it can bring. Who's the killer of the chapter? What kind of power do they have? Who's the survivor? What kind of perks are coming with this chapter? Are the Addons gonna suck ass? Is there gonna be a map? How many cosmetics exist? Is the PTB gonna be broken? These questions and more plague our minds. And many people have made their own take on what this Five Nights at Freddy's chapter could look like. Who the killer is, what powers they have, so on and so forth. Well, I'm here to throw I'm here to throw this purple hat that I found into the ring, to give all of you what I personally would want to see from this collab. So join me, won't you, as I explain my personal thoughts on Greetings. I am the Blue Plush Trap, Plush for short, and as the intro to this video suggested, I'll be diving into my personal concept for the Five Nights at Freddy's chapter coming soon to Dead by Daylight. Now of course, I physically don't know if the PTB will be broken or not, but besides that question, I can sorta answer a few of the things. Except cosmetics, I don't feel like going through that right now. Probably a separate video that I'm not gonna do because I'm currently working under a time limit. Anyways, this video is divided into 3 separate parts. I'll be going over the killer I chose, as well as the power that I made for them, along a few other things such as perks and lightly glossing over the add-ons because wow, I made a lot. Then we'll head over to the survivor's side to explain their perks, as well as why I chose the survivor that I chose, running everything up with my personal ideas for what the map could be. But keep in mind, this is my personal opinion, and you're free to have a different one from mine. I'm not saying that this is what will happen, so please don't set me on fire because it's not 100% as I said it. We good? Good. Now, as in any good concept for a Dead by Daylight chapter, let's start with it's Springtrap. Yeah, no ands, ifs, or buts, it's Springtrap. What are you expecting me to say? Five Nights at Freddy's poster villain is and always will be Springtrap. William Afton. His effects are seen throughout the entirety of the series. Can you tell that I don't believe that the Mimic is either Burntrap or Malheur? And it would be a huge disservice if the one and possibly only chapter in Dead by Daylight isn't the funny British child slaughterer in his own fursuit. And while yes, there are other characters that do fit the killer criteria that Dead by Daylight looks at, such as Ennard, Scrap Baby, that goddamn robot, or any of the glamour animatronics under the control of Malheur, really, or even Vanny, though every single one of these has one reason or another why they wouldn't be added. Be they just too new, a power to make them work and do justice to the character would be weird, or they have absolutely nothing to go off of. So at the end of the day, whether you believe that the Mimic or Ennard would be a good fit for the first, and again, probably only Five Nights at Freddy's chapter that we'll ever get in the video game, unless it does numbers, then I think it's a safe bet to think that it's Springtrap that we'll be getting. But with that said, which version of Springtrap are we getting? Because I don't know about you, there's at the very minimum 4. 5 if you count the pit creature, 6 if you count Springtrap before the Springlock incident, which, okay, fair enough. But I do personally believe that we are getting FNAF 3 people. As for why we're getting FNAF 3 people, or more accurately, when we're getting people from, I'd like to take a detour before we talk stats, to talk about the... When this chapter was originally released, or rather the tease of it was originally released by Behavior, other than the excitement that this chapter was finally happening, one piece of speculation ran wild in both communities. And that would be how Dead by Daylight and the FNAF lore were gonna be handled. Or, more importantly, how and when was the entity going to swoop in and grab William Afton for its own? Now, as I personally see it, there are, at the very minimum, 5 events that could be the time where the entity swoops in, grabs Springtrap, takes it for its own, and forces him to participate in the trials. Those times being right after the Springlock incident happened, that turns William Afton into Springtrap proper, after FNAF 3, whether that be directly during or after the fire, during FNAF 6, where William Afton gets set on fire again, in UCN, where William is forced to stay in Purgatorio by Cassidy, and the entity would essentially be saving him from such a fate. And finally, after the Burn Trap ending, where Burn Trap gets scooped up by the blob, and the entity intervenes thinking Burn Trap instead. Now, all of these possibilities for Springtrap lore do make sense and are possible in some way, shape, or form. However, in my personal bias, I only see 3 of these being the best of the best. And those are the latter 3 that I mentioned. As much as a William Afton before being properly Springtrap is something that we have never seen before in the games, and we only got a slight tease of it with the movie design for the Spring Bonnie suit. As the killer backstory, I don't feel like it does Springtrap justice to just be him after the Springlock incident and nothing more. Yes, he has killed at the very minimum around a dozen children, but just being Springlocked and not having the time to be Springtrap and attempt to become Scraptrap, for me feels like it's doing an injustice to the character in and of themselves. That might just be me, though. I'm weird when it comes to FNAF lore. The same issue for me kind of hits FNAF 3 as well. Yes, it would make sense, and he has gone through 5 nights, well, 4, of enduring the same torture that he put his own victims through by being monitored 24/7 and being forced to comply with the animatronic side of him. Although it would be extremely cool to see what Springtrap was doing in the time frame between FNAF 3 and FNAF 6, I don't think the biggest moment in FNAF history, if not the biggest moment in gaming history, full stop, would be ignored when talking about the lore of the franchise. Which leads us to FNAF 6, Ultimate Custom Night, and Security Breach. FNAF 6 is the obvious choice. It's seen widely, whether you believe Mimic Trap or not, that FNAF 6 is when Addons was thoroughly defeated. Henry lured every single remaining piece of the tragedies of Fazbear Entertainment to one location to burn everything down. Although a few may have gotten away, that's neither here or there, however. And one of those pieces is William Afton. So, taking him out of the moment that solidified, in quotation marks, his defeat would make sense. It's the entity saving him from the moment where he actually perished, trying to get the entity's favor on Springtrap because you were safe from death. Ultimate Custom Night follows a similar line of thinking. Afton is stuck in Purgatorio thanks to Cassidy being a vengeful little child, and he kinda deserves it, but also desperately wants to get out. And he would probably do anything, even if that anything required getting help from either Henry or Michael, the two people who he, at this point in time, hates the most. With that said, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that an Eldritch entity would swoop in, save him from Purgatorio, and give him back the form that he essentially views himself as. Because something that we do get from the books is that when William is Springtrap, he fully embraces being Springtrap. And so, because of how the realm of the entity and the entity itself works, I'm pretty sure it would give him back that form. Burntrap is a similar situation. It's saving William from, once again, perishing, albeit at this time by the hands of Giant Spaghetti Freddy, and restoring him back to the form that he relishes in being the most, that being Springtrap. And no matter what Burntrap is to you, you have to admit that at the very minimum, some form of William influence is here. Be it just his agony, just his remnant, that does not matter. William Afton is Burntrap in some way, shape, or form. And so, the entity, again, trying to once again get favor out of Springtrap, other than just giving him the form of his peak, let's say it, would attempt to complete Springtrap by giving him whatever piece of William is missing, recreating it as best as it can. However, no matter what story they end up going with for Springtrap, I feel like all of these can all go down one single road. The entity tries to gain favor from Springtrap by giving him powers that he's never had, giving him the form that he most relishes in having, and essentially allowing him to continue his experiments on remnant, agony, fear, so on, eternally in the realm, essentially coming back eternally. But personally, I don't think this works for the entity. You see, it's my belief that no matter how the entity gets Springtrap to enter its realm, Springtrap and the entity's relationship will not be an easy one. Springtrap is, at the end of the day, William Afton. And William Afton does not bend the knee to anyone unless, in his eyes, it's necessary. Once again, using the Michael and Henry example from Ultimate Custom Night, he would never ask them help unless he had no other option to turn to at that point in the storyline. And I think his relationship with the entity will be something along those lines. William will not do the entity's bidding because he wants to serve the entity, or because he likes the entity. He's doing them out of necessity, because if he didn't, harm would come his way, and he's not going to let that happen. However, when he's not forced into a trial by the entity, something tells me that he's going to be plotting and scheming to find a way out. After all, the terror of Mr. Afton is that he always comes back. So what's to say that he doesn't try to do that again? Although this time, he'll be coming back from something much greater than death itself. Well then, after getting the lore section of the video done too, let's actually talk stats, shall we? I present to you the newest killer in the fog, the Attraction. Yes, I'm using the Attraction as a name, although probably the animatronic would have been better. Sue me. Anyways, the Attraction is a 90% movement speed killer. He has a 32-meter terror radius. He's classified as a tall killer. His power is Remnants of Agony, and his weapon is... Alright, let's talk about it, shall we? One of the other most highly contested forms of speculation when it comes to the FNAF chapter is what weapon will Springtrap be wielding? And I personally have 5 options. We have his ever-iconic knife, the fan-favorite option of a fire axe, and an animatronic part, most likely an endo arm as a default, which can spew so much cosmetics of every single animatronic. The boring option of just having Springtrap punch the ever-loving shit out of people, although very funny, kind of meh, in my opinion. Or they can do the exact same thing that they did with Sadako and invent something completely new that makes sense for Springtrap. A lot of people are actively discussing which one of these should be the choice, and if you want to know my opinion and on where I stand in this discussion, I don't care. I just want to see people on the game. If I'm gonna be honest, I'm at the point in time where I don't care what weapon they give to Springtrap, I just want to see him in the fog. So whether he's carrying a knife, an axe, an endo limb, just punching the ever-loving shit out of people, or something completely brand new that behavior makes sense with Springtrap and the FNAF lore, I do not care. I just want to see William in the fog. And that's my stance on it. With the stats and weapons out of the way, let's get into the part of the video that I bet all of you have finally been waiting for. The power in and of itself. As I've stated previously, the power that the Attraction comes with is Remnants of Agony. However, Remnants of Agony is actually separated into 2 separate parts. The active power itself, Phantoms of the Past, and a map object known as Security Watch. I'd like to go over Security Watch first. In any trial with the Attraction, a set of 20 cameras will be spawned around the map. These cameras are visible to both killer and survivors, and it is always guaranteed that one camera will spawn with the view of a generator. Around the map also, placed in two opposite sides of the map to each other, will be two camera stations. Each camera station has the ability to monitor 10 of the 20 cameras found in the trial in and of itself, with no cameras overlapping between stations. Only the survivors can interact with the camera stations, and when interacting with one, the other camera station in the trial will automatically shut off. This mostly so that only one camera station can be active at a time. The survivor has the ability to flip between the 10 cameras that it has access to, thanks to that particular camera station. When viewing the attraction on the cameras, it's fine, but after 5 cumulative seconds of viewing the attraction, that's when things become a problem, as after 5 cumulative seconds, the attraction gains the aura of the camera station that revealed him, as well as gaining the location of the survivor that was viewing him on Killer Instinct once they leave that camera station. This is to emulate Springtrap always being aware that he's being watched during the events of FNAF 3, as if you were to see the camera renders for Springtrap during that game, in most of them, he's looking directly at the camera, knowing that he's being watched and he's watching you as well. But cameras aren't just to know the location of the attraction. They have a secondary function in the form of an audio lure. In the cameras that have a generator in sight, the survivor will be able to play an audio lure. This audio lure will send a fake noise notification to the killer, alerting him that a generator has been tampered with. This is to essentially lure Springtrap away from chasing survivors and to go check on a generator. The audio lure in and of itself has a cooldown after use, just so that it can't be spammed. And this audio lure is global, so after using it, you'll have to wait a hefty 7 seconds until the audio lure can be used again by either camera stations. Much like Vecna's spell choice, Phantoms of the Past has 6 different options that the attraction player can choose to cycle between. And these are changed much like Vecna by pressing Control and choosing from the wheel. The options for Phantom of the Past are as follows. Phantom Freddy, who will roam the trial, and if any survivor enters within a radius from him, he'll jump scare them and inflict them with Hindered, as well as revealing that survivor to the attraction, Killer Instinct. Phantom Chica will haunt a generator, this being indicated by a cupcake being atop the generator. By the cupcake being on top of the generator, having its candle lit up. Should you interact with the generator that Phantom Chica is haunting, then you get jump scared and that generator gets blocked for 7 seconds. Phantom Foxy will rush forward, ignoring walls but not going up or down elevations. And should he reach a survivor, he will jump scare them and inflict them with the exposed status effect. The next 3 Phantoms, that being Phantom Mango, Phantom BB, and Phantom Puppet, will all roam the cameras. This is Springtrap's way of countering people just staying on the cameras to monitor him. If staring at Mango for too long, you will get jump scared by them and you'll get the dash status effect, with Phantom Mango's proper audio playing in the background while the effect still goes on. If you get jump scared by Phantom BB by watching him too much, you'll get the Oblivious status effect, and the audio lure will go on cooldown after Phantom BB jump scares you. And finally, for Phantom Puppet, while looking at them for too long will cause them to jump scare the player and force them off of the cameras, rather than giving a status effect to the player, to the survivor that got jump scared. The Phantom Puppet will just hang around, and this is a problem because the attraction will get Phantom Puppet's aura when they have entered the trial proper and are following the survivor. While each Phantom has their own durations before they disappear on themselves, by themselves, I mean, Springtrap does have the ability to dispel them from a trial by pressing the active power button again when a Phantom has already been summoned. This immediately forces Phantoms of the Past into its cooldown, but it also removes the Phantom from play earlier if you feel like you could use another Phantom to get the job done. Now, as is tradition when a new killer joins the fog, they come with their own set of 3 teachable perks. The attraction is no different. The 3 perks that I've made for Springtrap are more tailored around FNAF 3 and the various errors that you can get while playing the game in and of itself, that make it harder for you to track Springtrap. These have been translated to the best of my abilities into proper perks, which I'd like to discuss a bit right now. Audio Lore is a token-based system, where you gain a token to a max of 5 when a generator is completed. For every token, the survivors will gain 1 second of deafen after they leave a generator, locker, and or stop powering an exit gate. Visual Error is the next perk that I've made, and this revolves around pallets and pallet stuns. After getting stunned by a pallet 4 times, the next pallet that stuns you grants you the undetectable status effect for 10 seconds and the haste status effect for 5 seconds. And the final perk that I have made for Springtrap is Scourge Hook Ventilation Error. For those who are unaware what a Scourge Hook perk is, at the start of a trial, 4 random hooks are turned into Scourge Hooks, and these are viewable to the killer as white hooks throughout the trial. What Scourge Hook Ventilation Error does is that when a survivor is unhooked from a Scourge Hook, both the survivors in this interaction, the one that did the unhook, and the one who was hooked in the first place, gain the Oblivious status effect, and their auras are revealed to the killer for 10 seconds each. And to end up this segment on the attraction, I'd like to gloss over the add-ons that I've made. Each one of them has their own strengths and weaknesses. Of course, that's how add-ons work. But they mainly affect the phantoms in and of themselves. There are some that do affect the cameras and how they work, but the add-ons in and of themselves are more targeted towards Springtrap's active power of the phantom animatronics. But with the attraction settled and done, we move on to the other part that a DBD full chapter normally has, which is a survivor. And of course, I have my own pick as well. It's someone who matters a lot to Afton and who could be considered one of the few people who was actually able to stop him for a short amount of time. Of course, I'm talking about Henry. Yeah, I want Henry. While yes, I do understand that Michael Afton is a much more bigger player in stopping William, personally I feel like, especially from a lore standpoint, when you look at how the entity and the entity's realm work, Henry would make much more sense, being William's previous business partner, and ultimately the man who put him in his grave until he came back twice. Henry also makes more sense for me, other than Michael, because I just want more Henry content, dude. Like, this is the biggest, arguably the most biggest character in the franchise outside of William himself, and we get almost nothing from him other than he's the owner of Fredbear's Family Diner by the time FNAF 2 takes place, or rather the old owner, and that he's the one that sets up FNAF 6 to trap everyone. Even if you personally believe that Henry is the night guard of FNAF 3, that still means that he's not that big of a foil to Springtrap as Michael himself is. However, I personally feel like Henry could do wonders in the realm, and to explain why, let's go over what I personally feel like Henry's lore could be, should he be the survivor of the FNAF chapter. Much like Springtrap, I can see Henry's lore being one-to-one to what happened in the game's timeline. Founds Fazbears Family Diner with William, loses Charlie, stays working at the company before either going to FNAF 3, seeing his old business partner still kicking, and decided to stop the terror once and for all, or just decide to stop it because he's actively been unable to sleep with how the machines he has created are being used for such vile reasons. Again, this depends on your personal interpretation of FNAF 3 and who we play as during that game. Nevertheless, Henry has a clear moment where he would be taken by the entity, that being the moment where he sets FNAF 6 ablaze in Connection Terminated. Now, the difference between Henry and William and how they take to the realm is simple, where William views the entity as something to overpower because he's not bending the knee to anything or anyone. Henry, on the other hand, views the entity, or rather the entity's realm, as his own purgatorio. Yes, he did atone for his sins by stopping the evil that is William Afton and the monsters he created from harming any more children, but he is still at fault for not doing this sooner. And so, Henry would view the entity's realm as a sort of punishment for him, his own hell, being forced to be chased down by monsters, with one of them being his old business partner, tormenting him for being unable to stop him prior. And that is one of the main reasons why I personally want Henry to be the survivor rather than Michael. Other than the point that those that enter the entity's realms will always feed the entity by the amount of emotions they feel while inside the realm in and of itself, the amount of emotions that both Springtrap and William would have by seeing each other in a purgatory-like world would be enough to sustain the entity a great amount. And thus that's my reason for wanting Henry rather than Michael or Vanessa or another adult or whoever you would like it to be the survivor. Much like Springtrap, when a new survivor enters the realm, it's common courtesy that they also get perks, this being the only thing that makes them unique, because Dead by Daylight survivors are just skins at the end of the day. The three teachable perks that I've made for Henry are the following. Presence of My Making is a perk that will reveal your aura to the killer for 3 seconds, but you also gain 5 seconds of haste when you unhook a survivor. Paragraph 4 is a perk that incentivizes you to complete generators. You yourself complete generators, not the entire survivor team completing a generator. You can get a maximum of 3 tokens when completing a generator. And when you go down to the dying state, you apply a 2-second decrease to hooking and pickup speed for the killer for 15 seconds but however you will be spending every single one of the tokens you have, with 2 additional seconds being added to the total time that the killer is slowed down when picking up and hooking survivors. For Henry's final perk, one that I feel has no need for an explanation as to why, Invocation Connection Terminated. For those who aren't aware what an invocation perk is, in the basement there will be a circle, and the survivor with the invocation perk can press the active ability button to start the invocation. Invocations take 60 seconds, however, other survivors can speed up the process, and it will be speed up by 50% or 100% depending on if they have an invocation perk themselves or not. After Invocation Connection Terminated is completed, the following happens. The killer will suffer a 25% speed decrease while carrying a survivor for the rest of the trial. However, you, aka the person who started Invocation Connection Terminated, will automatically enter the injured state and will suffer the broken status effect for the remainder of the trial. After an invocation is completed, every single invocation perk for the remainder of the trial is disabled. Invocation perks, to me, are very interesting because you're putting yourself in the worst possible spot to be in just to give the killer a debuff, and this takes time. So I thought, what better use of this specific type of perk than on Henry's Hail Mary to stop William and every single tragedy that befell under Fazbear Entertainment's name. But these are the perks that I've personally made for Henry. And as I'm aware, other people would want other survivors to enter the realm rather than Henry, and so perk design is bound to be different between every single survivor, which is healthy because we can't all just make the same exact concepts over and over and over again. With both the killer and the survivor mentioned and handled already, there's only one missing part that I'd like to touch before I conclude this video of mine, and that would be the map. Now, when it comes to the map for the FNAF chapter, there's always been two strong contenders. An indoor map that is just Behavior's own take on a FNAF location, or Fazbears Fright, that works similarly to Badham. Wait, is it Badham? I forget. Where there is an outside area in one main building that the map focuses around. Personally, I like Fazbears Fright because I want to see Behavior's take on what Fazbears Fright could look like in and of itself, but I also want to see what the surrounding area of the horror attraction itself is. And a bonus would be that outside the trial walls you can see animatronics stalking from beyond the woods. I think that would be very sick. But I can also see a world where we get a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza as an indoor map, because I also think that could work very well for the system and the gameplay loop that Dead by Daylight has of looping tiles, pallets, walls, generators, that sort of deal. But at the end of the day, this is just my personal concept to what the FNAF chapter could look like. And you are free to disagree with the opinions and statements and choices that I've made throughout this video. But I do wish to ask you, did you like what you saw? What did you like? What didn't you like? Please, in the comments, feel free to give your own opinions on what I've made, as I do very much like the concept that I made, but I do understand that some things could possibly be tweaked here and there to make it an overall better chapter. I'd also like to take a moment to apologize for the gap in uploads, but with a lot of things happening to me, both in my personal life and projects that I'm now a part of, as well as my own personal projects that I'm working on, YouTube has kind of fallen to the back burner of everything. And what doesn't help is that with me currently recording stuff on what I call the old laptop, I don't have access to as many tools for YouTube creation as I did back when I was using my other laptop. Still, I will attempt to make videos work and come out, although I'm not going to promise anything. With that said, I do hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you didn't, just press the dislike button. Nobody's really gonna see it. If you want to comment your opinion on the video, or just tell me I suck because I used Henry as the survivor, not Michael, and you want to send me on a witch trial because I don't believe that the mimic is either Malhair or Burn Trap, feel free to put your thoughts on the comment section below. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button. If you want to be notified in the once in a blue moon that I actually do upload, hit the bell, and until next time, I'll see you in the flip side.